everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on our Careers 2030 webinar series, which is an in-depth look at public and private policies, what's really taking place in the classrooms and schools to help our students understand the changing skills that are needed for the jobs of tomorrow. And our goal really with this webinar series is to bring in educators, administrators, policymakers, and community leaders together for an open and honest discussion on how we can engage our younger generation and really facilitate their skill building while aligning their interests and aptitudes to help shorten the path to meaningful careers. So I know that's quite a mouthful, but I'm sure that as you listen in, we have our esteemed guest, Commissioner Adrian Garcia from Precinct 2. You will get to see what we're talking about. So let me introduce myself. My name is Ghazal Qureshi. I'm a mom, an entrepreneur, and most importantly, a passionate promoter of providing meaningful connections to kids about what they're learning in their classroom and how that really applies to the real world. I'm the CEO and founder of UpBrainery, which provides an AI-driven technology platform for kids in middle and high schools to really explore careers, not just for today, but what's coming in the future, allowing them to really zero in on what suits their interests and aptitudes, and then giving them the opportunity to gain skills and strategies to start exploring their potential career paths much earlier. And before I introduce Commissioner Garcia, Takidra, my co-host, would you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Takidra Pierre. I am the Director of Marketing and Communications for the College of Agriculture and Human Sciences at Prairie View A&M University. I am super excited to be here and speak with you guys today. I love everything about this webinar series, so I'm excited to hear from Commissioner Garcia about his ideas and perspective regarding education. So glad to be here.
Thank you. And then without further ado, I'd like to introduce our esteemed guest, Harris County's Precinct 2 Commissioner Adrian Garcia. And just to give you a little bit of a background on him, and I know I'm not going to do justice, but the little bit of a background that I wanted to share was that Precinct 2 has always been home to Commissioner Garcia and his family, and he has over 35 years of career in public service, which began as a Houston police officer. And then he was appointed by Mayor Lee Brown as director of the mayor's anti-gang office and elected to Houston City Council. From there, Commissioner Garcia has continued his service by being elected to the office of Harris County Sheriff. And then since then, he has been in public service as the Precinct 2 Commissioner. So Commissioner, would you please take a few minutes and kind of introduce yourself? I know I didn't do you justice, but we really want to hear from you about your journey, about your path, and what has led you to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Ghazal and Takidra. And thank you all for tuning in. My name is Adrian Garcia, and as Ghazal did a phenomenal job at my introduction. I always like that kind of introduction, Ghazal, because it's short. But the bottom line is that, look, I'm a native Houstonian, born and raised in this great city. I am the child of immigrant parents and family. My entire family is from Mexico. My father originally from the great state of Guanajuato, and my mother from the great state of Jalisco, and my brothers and sisters all born in Mexico City. But we made our way to Houston, and then a short while later, I decided I liked the city and decided to become the only American born of my family. So growing up in the near north side, which is in Precinct 2 and has been for decades, it's been my life. I've worked here, I've lived here, I have gone to school here, I have patrolled, as Ghazal mentioned. started my public service career as a Houston police officer. And then I represented a significant part of the area when I was elected to Houston City Council, and then absolutely represented the entire area when I became the county sheriff as well. And now as the commissioner, I represent not only the area that has been home to me for my entire life and my family, but I also represent a geography that is approximately 200 square miles and includes 1,300,000 residents in the area, and is also home to the Port of Houston and to NASA and now the spaceport. So very, very honored and proud and privileged to be the commissioner for this area. And again, I'm so excited to join on this discussion, because education, to me, it's the silver bullet. It is truly the cure to all things that challenge us, and it's also the innovation to problems we don't even know exist yet. So I'm always I've been a big fan of Gazal and all of her work, and from Smart Kids to now UpBrainery, to everything this young lady does, I'm a big fan. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. You know, and I am so excited because I know from my previous interactions with you, having known you for a long time now, how passionate you are about education and how much you care about building up that community. So thank you for taking the time to be here and allowing everybody else to kind of learn and see what amazing things that you have done, you know, throughout the city, in your district. And I really want to talk about your initiative of engage, educate, and empower that you have in your district. So perhaps you can comment on that a little bit.
Sure. And let me give folks a visual of what you're mentioning. And here we go. If you can see this card right at the bottom of it, it says engage, educate, and empower. Engage is because Precinct 2 is one of the most underserved areas of all of Harris County. And for those of you who may not be familiar with where Harris County is at, Harris County is the largest county in the state of Texas. We're near the south central area of the state. And our entire population is greater than that of 26 states in the United States of America.
Wow.
We have an immense GDP, and if we were to be an independent country, we would rank somewhere in the area of about 17th or 15th in the globe. So very significant area of our country, and if not the world. We're incredibly diverse. And in fact, if you're looking at the screen, Gazal, Takidra, and I, and others all represent just a small portion of the beautiful diversity that we have in this area. So to me, if you're not engaging, then you're leaving people off the table. And I absolutely believe that that the table for service, for education, for information, for opportunity needs to be immensely large, so that everyone can have a seat at that table and participate in the evolution of our community and our society. Secondly, on educates, just like what we said earlier, look. Here's a little bit of my story. I was a part of Houston's racial integration experience. Brown versus the Board of Education, for those who know that part of our American history, was taking place in other parts of the country. Then a lawsuit was filed on the Houston Independent School District because the school that I was attending, which was considered a predominantly white school, would not accept an African-American student. So the lawsuit was filed on the premise of Brown versus the Board of Education. And as a result, the settlement to the lawsuit was to begin to racially integrate the school system, beginning with my school and a school in the in what is referred to as in the Fifth Ward, known as back then it was called Crawford Elementary. Now, the significance to that is that experience, number one, taught me at an early age. It educated me at a very early age that in spite of how the good Lord makes us, in spite of what walk of life we may come from, as a child, I learned that we were all kids and we all had more in common than anything else. And so, look, I think I remember that everybody liked a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and everybody liked to play, and almost none of us liked to study. So, there's a lot in common. There's a lot in common. And then that experience put me on the track to be a part of the Houston Independent School District's first magnet school. And that was then referred to as the Elementary School for the Gifted. Somebody back then thought I had something, and either that or I snuck in somehow. But I got to go to this incredible school where I learned to speak French, computer programming. Back then, we were using punch cards. Physics, we were shooting rockets out in the playground into the air. I learned to play chess, drama. And so I just had an incredible experience. I also got to earn a scholarship to the School of Fine Arts here in the Houston area. So those two experiences, recognizing what diversity is and what diversity shouldn't be. Diversity shouldn't be the identification of differences. It should be the identification of commonality. And then the truly fundamental education experience that I had. And I have always walked through my life thinking every school should teach computer programming. Every school should teach physics. Every school should teach a foreign language. Every school should provide students the greatest opportunities to learn things that we have historically taken for granted that they happen in our later part of our lives. I think the brain is such a incredible piece of technology that we ought to feed it as quickly and as early as possible. And that's why, as a county commissioner, and a lot of people try to wonder, what is a county commissioner? What does a county commissioner do? Well, historically and traditionally, a county commissioner digs ditches. A county commissioner fixes bridges. A county commissioner takes care of roads. That's pretty much the history of a county commissioner. But because of my commitment and recognizing that the area that I represent is underserved, then I have self-defined my role. And my role, I see it, is to invest into education. And so today I have an early childhood education center that I recruited into one of my facilities. I also have a middle school, and the middle school, it's run through a charter school. And if people know the charter school debate, public schools don't like charter schools because they feel that they, number one, take their money, and then secondly, they take the top 10% performing schools out of that public school system. This particular charter focuses on the bottom performing students to make them better performing students. So for those reasons, and look, in my school, my elementary school for the gifted, I was the first class. 3 classes later, there was a guy by the name of, maybe you've heard him, probably not. His name is Jeff Bezos. And look at where that guy is at today. I wish I had shared a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with him. But all that to say that I know I can go on and on and on about education. That's why I love me some Ghazal and all that she does, because it's truly the cure to all things. And so I made it a part of my platform. And then Empower, if I do the engagement right, and if I can do the education right, and for me, the education is also multi-dimensional. It's not just the traditional type of education, but it's also the education of what is county government, the education of how to access existing resources within our government, how to advocate for your neighborhood. So I look at education as multi-tiered and multi-dimensional. And so if I do the engagement right, and if I can do the education right, then people become more empowered than how they were before I became their county commissioner. And that's my goal. I want to leave this county and my precinct much better than how I received it. And we have a lot of challenges. So I really think that part of my role is not just to sit in this chair and do the historically traditional things, but it's to stretch and demonstrate to the community that government does work, government does care, and that we're not going to stop until we get it right.
Oh, wow. Thank you. I mean, that is amazing. And I knew I loved your work, but this is incredible. And this, can be a model for not just, Houston, but it could be a model for across the United States, across the world, on how communities, school systems, and the government can come together and provide those meaningful pathways to lift everyone.
That's right.
So thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure. I like bragging on the work. And look, I don't do this all by myself. I got a really, really phenomenal team of people. And I'm also very, very quick to partner with others. So thank you, but I don't do it alone. There's so many people in my organization and in my network like you, Ghazal, that help me get to those crazy points. I'll just say, I forget to ask you, Ghazal, what is the audience profile that we're speaking to?
So we're actually, so we have all types of different followers, business folks that are interested in the state of education. They're interested in their future pipelines. We have parents that are looking to guide their kids on best how to approach these future careers or educational, outcomes that they're looking for. And of course, educators and administrators that are looking for unique and innovative ways.
Good. And the reason I was asking is because I want to ask for forgiveness in advance. I tend to get a little colorful, so I just want to make sure that there weren't any kids in the room, so to speak. But the one thing that and speaking of my staff, look, for the problems that exist in our society, and we got a lot of them, there are very, very few answers for them. I mean, there are no perfect solutions, better yet. And so my approach with my team is we strive for perfection, which is always going to be unattainable. But as we strive for perfection, we create progress. And so in my office, everybody knows that I'm all about WAI, which stands for Wild Blank Ideas. You fill in the A. Because I do not accept no as an answer. I do not accept that we've never done it. We've never done it that way. There's nothing we can do. Oh, I hate that one. I really, really hate that one. So that's the approach that we try to take here, because we know we all have challenges, and I love me some educators. So I want to thank those that are participating today. I've got a couple of college professors in my family. I've got several teachers in my family, and I've just seen the magic in my family that other educators have been able to do. If not for those educators in their lives, my family may not have been able to do the things that they're doing today. So that's how simple it gets.
Yeah.
Commissioner Garcia, I want to ask you a question, because you've mentioned educators, and I love that your platform is centered around education and engagement and empowering. How can educators better engage with your office to push that that community engagement and community empowerment? What can educators do to work with you to make that happen?
One of the things that I try to do, and of course, depending on the spectrum of where you're at with your educational responsibility, if you're at the collegiate level, if you're at the high school level, I want to make sure that, number one, I have an internship program. So please reach out to my office and know about our internship program, so that we can make sure to promote it with you. Now, look, I represent a district, and in theory, it means that I should only be representing or serving the people in the district. I don't turn anybody away for anything. In fact, one of the first educational initiatives that we did, was to provide free SAT, ACT, college prep classes. And we got kids from all over the county and didn't turn any of them away. So just reach out, let us know about or get familiar with our internship program, number one. And historically, or initially, I should say, the internship program was only for college students. I don't do that anymore. I allow high school students to participate. And so then the other one is that, just as I laid out, I've got I did a SAT, ACT college prep program, but I now took $1 million of my budget and applied it to something that is called Grad Cafe. Grad Cafe, this one is still, because it's available to my other colleagues, they just haven't participated yet. But I've got $1 million in Grad Cafe, and Grad Cafe is in, I think we're almost in every precinct 2 county library. And it's a college navigator and support program. If families are trying to figure out how to pay for college, if educators are encouraging their students that have a lot of potential to pursue their university or college experiences, whatever the case may be, this program, Grad Cafe, works with students and families to help them to educate them on the FAST system, on the financial aid program, how to navigate that, how it works, how not to be intimidated by it, so on and so forth. And then it also takes students who say, I just want to go to the community college. They help assess their GPA, and then they may say to a young person, which has happened, I know you want to go to the Houston Community College, but have you ever heard of a place called Yale? Because you've got a really good GPA and so on and so forth. But no one ever walked them through that process. And for whatever reason, that particular kid had not yet gotten, either had not yet written for scholarships and had not been introduced to the university systems. Grad Cafe took that kid, picked him up, and that kid is, if I remember correctly, I think he ended up in Stanford.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, and then similarly, I want to go to Yale. This is Adrian Garcia. I want to go to Yale. And they're going to say, hey, let's start with remedial school. So it's a really good system to help point young people and their families in the right direction. It's also available for learning adults. So if some folks have not gone to school, and it could be college, it could be trade school, it could be a number of things. This system helps them with that. So I just want to make sure that it now, we're not going to turn anybody away in spite of it only being in Precinct 2. But if you want to visit with the folks who are running it, I'm happy to connect you with them and see if you can create a collaboration with it.
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea. I mean, I love that that's available. So that's an additional resource for students and families outside of their campus that they go to, no matter what grade they're in.
That's correct.
And then to take it to the next level and have the skilling or upskilling for the adults. And I think that's probably a really overlooked area. And, you know, unless people know about the resources, they don't know it's there. They think, oh, if I don't go to college, there's nothing else that I can do. But there's so many programs and certifications and different ways to get into industries. And you mentioned collaboration. So I will definitely reach out to you and see about that, because I think that a program like that is needed across Harris County. And you guys have been doing that successfully. So as Ghazal had mentioned earlier, you know, that could be a template for others to use to have those same type of services in their county.
Yeah.
You mentioned collaborations, and you've mentioned that a few times as far as partnerships and working together. Can you give another example of a partnership or a collaboration within Precinct 2 that has been successful in following with that engagement, education, and empower initiative that you have?
I got a long list, Takeda. but I will tell you one that I'm very, very well. I'm really proud of all of them. And just real quickly on the upscaling point. First of all, let me just make sure you know where I come from in the sense of why these things are important to me. They're important to me. Just look, when I was the sheriff of the county, when it comes to education, I would walk the county jail and I would just literally feel a lump in my throat, because as I walked through those halls, all I saw was wasted human capital. Mm-hmm. In the state prison system, 9 out of 10 inmates are high school dropouts. In the county jail system, 7 out of 10 were high school dropouts. So the research says that if we can get our children to effectively read by the 3rd grade level, then dropping out is not likely to be a part of their life's history. However, if they don't get to read by the 3rd grade level, then all of these other terrible things are a part of their likely experiences, including dropping out of high school. And when that happens, it potentially transcends into becoming a criminal justice statistic. So when I first interviewed for this job with the citizens, I told them, I said, look, Precinct 2 has the lowest median income of all of Harris County. And I believe because of that, we also have the lowest home ownership rate. Very few families live or own where they live. And as a result, there's no potential of creating generational family wealth. And because of the low median income, we also have the lowest educational attainment rate. I think we have immense potential here. But I think young people make tough decisions for their families. Some may not want to finish high school because they're going to go work with mom and dad, or they're going to go find a job to help mom or dad. And then if they're in college, we have the lowest educational attainment rate at the high school and post-high school level, because I think, number one, since we don't have that many college graduates on this side of town, then there's very little mentorship for how to navigate that experience. And then because of the low medium income, I think there's a lot of kids going off in the right direction, but who are, struggling, listening to their families struggle while they're having these great experiences in a dorm and in a college. So I do believe that many students are dropping out with the intention of going back, but then life happens and they don't make it back. And then Precinct 2 also has, again, I think because of the low medium income, we also have the highest rates of families and children without health insurance. And then we also have the highest number of medical health deserts. We have the highest rates of diabetes, highest rates of acute asthma in the county. And we also have the highest rates of cancer in the state.
Wow.
So when you see and the reason I say I self-define, I have an education advisor, I have a health services director, I have a environmental policy advisor, we have workforce development and economic development deputy chief of staff for that. So I'm trying to impact those negative indexes for empowering the next generation. So absolutely, and I can't do that all by myself, Takidra, and that's why collaborations are so key. So all that to say that I look for partnerships wherever I can find them. I look for strategic partnerships, even if that partnership may not include me. It's about connecting the dots and creating forward movement, because then I know it's happening and I know it's going to contribute in a positive way. So for me, it's not necessarily about how my name or my brand. It's more about how it impacts the community. And so So I hope I answered your question. I tend to go
You did. You actually answered my question and then some. I think I can't wait to have an offline conversation and continue this, because I think there are a lot of opportunities for us to collaborate in a way that can bring even more impact and attention to a lot of the data that you shared earlier. Some of it I knew, and then some of it was like, wait, really? And I think that the more people know, so that education side, the more people are educated about the data, the information, what's really happening in their area, and not just what's being shared, but what's really, really happening, then we can create more realistic solutions.
That's right.
And through partnerships, like you said, it does not matter if it's you're directly involved or if you just connected the dots. It's still a partnership that can impact the entire community. And so that, I think, from a leadership perspective, it's important for us to understand that, you know, all of this is bigger than us. And the work that we do through collaborations and, you know, public-private partnerships and all of these other opportunities really is to impact the people who need it most and who may not know the services that are available, because there's a lot that's available.
Yeah.
And I think in some cases, and here's another question, in some cases, it's a lot of information. You know, you can go to, and I'm sure Precinct 2 does resource fairs and health fairs, and, you know, a resident may go and get a lot of information. How can they digest that information and prioritize what's important to them? Do you have any you know, words of advice there as far as, you know, someone going to a resource fair, getting information on everything from employment to healthcare services to education? When they go home and go through all of that information, how can they prioritize to make sure that they are taking advantage of everything that's out there?
You know, that is a very good question. And it's like I mentioned earlier, we don't have all the perfect solutions for that. But the thing that we try to do is that this office did not have a, or let me just say, when I was on Houston City Council, I had someone whose job was to go sit in the meetings of HOAs and civic clubs and chambers of commerce and make notes of anything interesting that they may have heard. Having learned from that, because I realized that I was only getting, 1% of what the issue was. And then the second thing was that we typically were only hearing the good stuff. And so now my community liaison department, their job is to go talk about connecting the dots. And they're like, if you have this, they don't wait for the conversation to develop organically if it ever develops. But they're like, we've been looking at our pothole repair. And so if you got potholes in your neighborhood, this is the number you need to call, because we can repair that pothole within 24 hours. If not, we need to know that it needs to be totally reconstructed. If you've got, if you were near flooded, but didn't flood, but there's a problem with your drainage system, you need to tell us, because the next rain may cause a flood for you. And so, but because you didn't flood, we don't know that there's a drainage problem in your neighborhood. And so we try to be very fundamental, but we also try to be pragmatic. So I'm a big data geek. And so I try to really look at maps and metrics, and then I do my WAI thing, and I'm like, wait a minute, how come I didn't see that dot here last week? Why is that dot here now? and what are we doing about it, and how do we do this, and what's that connected to, and who's missing at the table, and have we told the people out there, or did we hear back from them before we do this? So it is a ever evolving effort to make sure that the community knows that there's all of these resources. But the biggest thing too is that my staff also become handholders, because of all the indexes I shared with you earlier. This is a hardworking, very humble, and in some regards, non-sophisticated populace that is in my precinct. So for you and I to log on to this webinar, no big deal. We can deal with this button and that button. But when someone floods, and then you tell them the first point of access to your recovery reimbursement is through this portal, and then we're here. Here's the link. Go figure it out. And then when they come back and we say, well, you had a deadline. How come you passed that deadline? So I have really made sure that my staff knows that part of their job, like it or not, is that we got to hold hands.
Yeah, that's a great segue actually into mentorship. I like the hand holding analogy, because if you flooded and maybe you don't have a computer, or your computer was damaged in the flood, if someone gives you a link to resources and you can't access that, and you don't know what the steps are if you don't have technology, that creates an additional barrier. And I think that, yeah, exactly. So great that you mentioned about your staff and other partners, holding hands, because sometimes that's what's needed.
Yep.
It's not, it's not some of the things that people who haven't been in the same situation may think is needed, but sometimes you do need someone to walk you through, whether that's, an educated person, an elderly person. If you've never been in that situation before, you may not know the process and what to do. So with the hand holding, that makes me think about mentorship and support. Can you talk about mentorship that you've had throughout the years? Because you've said several times today that you haven't done this alone. You don't do it alone. It's a team effort. Can you speak on mentorship and how important that is within communities?
Yeah. I would just simply say that, I've got a list a mile long of people that, whether in mentorship, can be someone who I've been talking to since I was a kid, or someone through my professional career, or it could be someone who just takes 5 minutes to walk people through something. So I want to encourage everyone to be a mentor. I participated in Big Brothers Big Sisters of Houston. So I was what we refer to as a big, and so I really do believe in this. I really do. And but even before it became that structured, when I was with the police department, a teacher, because I was giving a presentation of some sort, and a teacher said, and it was at a conference, and so this teacher was from some other part of Texas. I don't remember from where. And she said, I've got a student that is really struggling. There are no Hispanic students. There's no Hispanic teachers. She's the only one. And I think if you could talk to her, I think it could help her a lot. So I'm like, okay. So gave me her number. She gave her my number. And I made the first call in 94, and I've never met her. And I made the last call last week, and so we've been talking. I've seen. I haven't seen, but I know about the boyfriends. I know about the mom and dad struggles and the grandparents, and heard about the graduation, the family challenges with the family and all that. And it's just been over the phone. We haven't FaceTimed or anything of that nature, just talking, good old fashioned talking.
Yeah.
So one is I just want to tell people how, I don't know if I've contributed to her, to any success that she's had. But I don't know what her life may be like if she didn't have that number to call. Because I've taken calls at 3 a.m. From her, and so number one, please be willing to extend yourself. Because one of the points I wanted to make to Kedra is that in my family, my second oldest brother, don't tell my oldest brother, but my second oldest brother is the brains of the family. He was, in his day, HISD's top performing student, incredible GPA. He's gone on to become an attorney and had an incredible public service career himself. Now has his own practice. But I remembered as a kid, back when a teacher could, I know things are a little different today, she would drive me home.
Yeah.
And tell my dad, he has potential. He can do so much more. And we talked about it. Had that teacher not done that and not, really encouraged him and talked to my dad, would his passion for education stayed with him? Who knows? So I'm a big believer. And I know things have changed since those days, but networking amongst yourselves with other within your network of saying, hey, Ghazal, I got this young man who's really, committed to STEM, can I send him to you and talk to him for a little bit, see what ideas you can give him? Or to Kedra, there's this, young lady who, man, I see some brilliance in there. I just don't know how to work it. It's just not stopping where we can stop. Just yesterday, I was speaking to a group of criminal justice master students, and the discussion was about community-oriented policing. And I said to him, I said, the father of community-oriented policing is Lee Brown. And I could tell when I said that, like, who's that?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Lee Brown was our police chief who brought community-oriented policing to Houston. He was our first African-American police chief. He was our first African-American mayor. I said, you ought to, look at his book and think about it. And then I just knew that something wasn't clicking just yet. So I said, hold on, man. Hey, Mayor, can you talk to this young man? Yeah, we're doing a little community-oriented policing thing. And he's like, oh, yeah. And he's like, oh my God. And so, it's just those little things. It doesn't have to be anything dramatic, but man, just that one little thing could be a game changer for a kid. So do it. Look for ways to do it. I love the Big Brothers Big Sisters uh, uh, agency or program because there's so many kids who could benefit from having a big brother or big sister in their lives. It's a hell of a commitment. I ain't gonna lie. You have to be intentional. You have to plan and not let your life go on. And that kid's never gonna complain that they haven't seen you in 3 weeks. But you have to be real intentional about it. And those kids that I was bigs with, they're still in my life. They still reach out and tell me how old or fat I'm getting. But so it's critical. And look, and even in a professional career, I think we all know how critical it can be to our success. So I have really benefited from so many people in their mentorship in my life. And it absolutely begins with my dad and my brothers. But then, there have been mayors, there have been police chiefs, there have been senior officers, there have been business leaders. I remember one time I had to have a meeting with a real prominent business leader, and I was nervous because I hadn't eaten at a fancy restaurant. I didn't know what fork to use. And then when the bill came, I was like, I got to pay for this. And he was like, no, it's okay. I got this. And I'm like, no. We were fighting over the bill. And he says, Adrian, it's okay to accept a little generosity. It's okay. It's okay. Don't worry. This is, and he goes, and look, I know that this means less to me than it does. It'll affect me less than it will affect you. So please allow me to do it. And I was like, wow, how he did that was real sweet. So little things like that, like when I took my daughter on our, don't tell my wife, I say the best date I ever had. Because she was just so innocent. And I just love the questions I got that night. There's a lot of people who have innocent questions, and your willingness to answer them with the wisdom that you bring to the table can be all the mentorship that somebody may need for the rest of their lives. You never know. So this is a must for everyone.
Yeah, I totally agree. Gosh, we should start our own separate mentorship program because we definitely align a lot. It's the little things that you have no idea if it may impact someone or not, but you do it anyway. And it is exhaustive and it's a lot of work and a lot of commitment, but it's another way of service, another way to serve community, to serve students, to serve children, parents. And I mean, for me, I'm giving back because people gave to me and people poured into me. And so I want that for future generations.
Pay it forward.
Yeah. And so with the few minutes that we have left, I do want to briefly get your take on service learning and how important that is. Because we've been talking about mentorship, we've talked about, partnerships and impact on community. Through mentorship, you can encourage service learning through adults or students. So just give us your take on service learning and how that impacts the community as a whole. We have about 3 minutes left.
Yeah, no.
If I could just add on to that a little bit, perhaps you can answer that. One of the things that I have found in my experience is that it's It's not
Are you
about
there,
people
Commissioner?
willing to be mentors or provide opportunities for students, but the problem is that we have
I think it might
a
be on
large
a little bit
population
of a
of students.
delay.
We have a large population of students that are not even aware that there are opportunities, that who to go, how to actually secure these types of mentorships and opportunities. So how can schools be more intentional, or communities be more intentional in connecting those dots?
Yeah. So one is that I will say that, look, I'm reading and listening to the challenges that are occurring in classrooms today because of the pandemic. So I can't, and I hear the exodus taking place within some careers from education because of the stress and the challenges and all that. All I will say is, please don't give up. We're not giving up on you. You're essential to our future. So please hang in there. Secondly, I will say that I think we have to be really, really good active listeners, so that when we hear, it's like, remember when we were kids and mom and dad waking us up at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday to go do our chores, and we're like, just let me sleep, leave me alone. When we hear a kid say, I was wondering about that, man, jump on what were you wondering about? What were you wondering about? And then when we're doing a turkey drive this weekend, rain or snow. A teacher reached out and says, do you need any volunteers? Some of my students who want to do help volunteer. And I'm like, bring them on. And it's just, reaching out to my office to see where those opportunities are at. Because one of the things that my office is also unique for is that I am the only AmeriCorps partner in the county. And my AmeriCorps students have now become full-time, not all of them, but most of them have become full-time employees in our parks departments and other areas of the county. So I'm a big believer that if we introduce a little bit of that experience to them, that may not get their attention, but at least they're in the same room where the rest of those opportunities may take place. So service learning is, to me, just incredible. And especially during this holiday season. I mean, it means a lot to a lot of people. But I wanted to close with my employ to empower. And that is that I always say, if not by the grace of God, there go I. Employ to empower is our homeless initiative. We go into encampments. We go to the sides of the freeways. We go out in the parks, and we engage the homeless living out there to give them a $15 an hour low barrier job. And we started in Precinct 2, had immense success in just 6 months. It's now countywide. And we now have someone, we believe in peer mentoring. So now we have someone who was previously in an encampment actually running our program.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yes. And we now have a significant amount of the people that we engage now in total supportive housing, permanent supportive housing. So they're no longer on the streets. We have connected many veterans to the VA and to their benefits. We have reunited some families. Some families thought their loved one was dead. So that, and to your point of mentorship and service learning, this is one of those areas because I've been able over my years to visit with some people and trying to understand what led you to be in this circumstance. And you hear the gamut. You hear the gamut of traumatic life experiences, drugs, but there's always this longer route. It's never just singular. And so I really think that our service learning really has to center around the things that challenge our communities so that we can always come back to the table and say, how do we fix this? How do we address it? How do we do better? How do we prevent it? And so that service learning, I think, is one of the most critical pieces of education that we ought to always support because, look, I'm in this office, I'm comfortable, I'm enjoying some coffee, I've got a cell phone. But as I tell people, if you've succeeded, if you've had success, if you've had favor, if you've had blessings, look to your right or left because somebody isn't. And whenever people tell me, thank you for what you did. Oh, wow, this was very helpful. I don't care about that. Just don't forget about someone that you know that isn't having success. Because I tell you, Kedra, I tell people I grew up in a tough neighborhood where tough things happen. And had I not had the strong parents I had, ain't no telling. This blue blazer might have been orange. So I don't take it for granted.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point for us to wrap up on. I love the fact that you posed all those questions, though, because Ghazal and I are we have a lot of commonalities in our viewpoints with education and just community service. And so posing those questions about how you can help, how you can get involved, will lead people to visit your website or maybe go to one of those resource fairs that we talked about, and just have access to a lot of different programs and initiatives. And I hope that anyone listening here, and like you said, if you've been blessed, if you have been shown favor, there's someone who has not, or someone who's going through a challenging moment. And it's up to us who have been favored and who are in positions to help others to do just that. So I am very appreciative of our conversation. We lost Ghazal a while ago, but I'm very appreciative of your time and just for sharing all of the wisdom that you have, learned and experienced throughout your career and sharing your personal story. I think that personal connection and that human connection is a lot of what is missing from our students now because they're so tapped into technology. And so if we can find that human connection and relate, even with technology, even with all of the great things that are going on, we still at our core want to connect and relate. So thank you so much, Commissioner Garcia. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
My pleasure. And Ghazal, thank you. Well,
I think she was trying to log in on another device from her spaceship, and she got to echo.
She's on the what is it? Origin.
She's on Artemis. She's
working. There I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. And believe it or not, I had no idea that I was not there because I was here listening to that entire conversation with my mouth wide open because 1 hour is just not enough, Commissioner. I mean, there is just not enough. We need to have follow-up discussions because there's just so much amazing content that came out of this. And like Takidra said, so many amazing questions that you posed and ideas that you gave. We need to continue this conversation, but I know I want to be mindful of your time. We're over time, and I apologize for my technical difficulties, but we want to end on a great...
It's okay. It's okay.
Exactly.
Then you're going to be okay.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Commissioner, for your time. Thank you, Takidra, for being my awesome partner in this. And we look forward to continuing this journey. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.